Well, hello, and welcome to I Love Gay today. And we are here during Pride Month with Brent Miller, Senior Director, Global LGBTQ plus Equality at Procter Gamble. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to be here, Matt. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. I mean, you and I have been connected over the years through social and LinkedIn, but lately I've just loved some of the stuff that I've been seeing that you guys are doing over there at Procter and Gamble right now.
Well, thanks. It's really a journey of love. It started for us. Well, I guess the long journey started really about 30 years ago when P&G put sexual orientation into its diversity policy. And over the last 5 years, we've rediscovered that story, and that took us on a great journey of self-reflection and opened up. I think it was probably one of the most rewarding periods of my career, and has started us just on a just incredible experience with the LGBT community, which we hadn't been on before.
Yeah. Well, you must have been doing something right because I know I took a look at the HRC Corporate Equality Index for Procter and Gamble, and you have a score of 100, and I'm going to guess that you probably had that for a while now.
Yeah, we've had it for a while, and I'm glad to see that so many companies are maintaining 100 index. I think they've created an outstanding standard for companies to meet. When we put sexual orientation to our diversity policy in 1992, we were only one of 3% of Fortune 500 companies that had done that at that time.
Yeah.
And to see the change over that 30-year period of time has been really remarkable in the private sector. And HRC has been instrumental in setting the bar and then working with companies to help them institute the policy. There's one thing to say what it needs to be, and there's another thing to help people get there. Because ultimately we need to help people get there in anything that we do versus just saying there's the finish line, figure it out yourself. Because that's not always the easiest thing to do. So they've been tremendous partners in helping us do that.
Yeah. Well, another partner though, and the reason I know I initially made outreach was you guys are working with GLAAD, and
Yeah.
you have this really interesting project, really specific to the advertising, marketing, LGBT world, and it's the Visibility Project.
Yeah, the Visibility Project started with GLAAD and P&G, and it was driven by a desire to see greater representation of the LGBT community in advertising. The Gina Davis Institute did a study last year that showed of all the creative work that had been submitted to the Cannes International Festival of Creativity, only 1.8% of those advertisements represented the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
So we know that there's a gap between the percentage of the community that's identifying as LGBTQ and how they're being represented in advertising. And P&G is one of the largest advertisers in the world.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to figure out, why does that gap exist? 20 years ago, that gap was largely there because people didn't want to represent the LGBT community. They were fearful of backlash from those that weren't supportive. And we dove in with GLAAD and found out that actually the main driver of lack of representation today is people being fearful of backlash from the LGBT community for not doing it right, or really not understanding how to do it well, because it's a new practice, because people haven't done it for a long time. So our goal is to work with GLAAD to drive the industry to increase representation, because higher representation in that level of visibility helps people see themselves in the world. And if you can see yourself in the world in a responsible way and create responsible conversation, that's one of the most fundamental ways that we're going to impact change.
Yeah.
And that's the way companies can use their voice to drive that. And that's where we're focusing our efforts, is helping our own brands, helping our own company, and in turn helping others in the industry that want to come along with us on that journey.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when I was reading and looking at all that, because P&G is famous for storytelling in their marketing, and especially even integrating with, I didn't learn this until many years later after growing up, and my mother would love soap operas, and then I realized that P&G was always an instrumental part of all that. But are you guys also incorporating a lot of storytelling even in today's marketing world?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we started our expansion into LGBTQ storytelling with telling the story of our own employees.
Yeah.
We made a film with a great big story in CNN about a gentleman named Michael Chanik, who was our first out employee, and he was outed in 1986 during Pride for having a kiss with a friend that was splattered all over the evening news in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And it was his experience that caused him to challenge the company to change its position and include sexual orientation. And we felt that if we were going to embark on a journey of visibility for LGBTQ people, we needed to tell our own story. And that included part of our own history, which hadn't always been so kind to LGBTQ people.
Yeah.
Because our history in that space is not unique. Most companies have been on that journey. And by opening that conversation, we hoped that other people could see our experience reflected in their own.
Yeah.
And then that led us on really incredible journey of self-discovery. And now we're doing that a lot in different ads and different campaigns. We did a campaign with Gillette called First Shave, where we tell the story of a young transgender man in Canada named Samson who shaves for the first time with his father.
Yeah.
And by telling such human stories that are relatable, not just as LGBTQ people, but as humans, as part of all people, we can bring people along on that conversation. And those stories drive empathy, and they ultimately drive to action. And that's an incredible gift. I think that I feel proud to be a part of every day.
That one made the rounds. I saw that, and I also saw a lot of the stories about it. It was a very well done ad.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
and there's others that we want to tell.
yeah.
We've been telling a lot with Pantene, because that team did the research and discovered that 60% of LGBTQ people change their hair when they come out of the closet. And it just speaks to the idea that hair is an incredible representation of how you want to present yourself to the world.
Yeah.
And when you come out, you're suddenly saying, hey, there's a part of me that you may not know, and I'm gonna present myself the way I've always dreamed of presenting myself. And so by Pantene doing that,
Yeah.
it helps people recognize the journey that a lot of people are on. I feel like I keep using the word journey, by
Yeah,
the way,
but it's true.
but I think that's true of what we're all doing, right?
Yeah.
And so doing it through brands or doing it through other forms of media is just a wonderful way to reach a lot of people, hopefully with a really good message.
Yeah. Well, when you're talking about even with Pantene and stuff, here it's Pride Month, and but you guys are doing a lot more. As I was kind of doing a little research, I see that you've got a really big project with iHeart Media called "Can't Cancel Pride," and what's that about?
Yeah, so last year, as COVID was beginning,
Yeah.
we were looking to see how we can help the LGBT community during that time.
Yeah.
And one of the things we realized, there were a lot of factors happening, but the LGBT community, just like a lot of marginalized groups, were having a disproportionate or feeling a disproportionate impact from COVID-19. And there wasn't a lot of concerted efforts targeted at LGBTQ people to support them during that time. So we came up with the concept of Can't Cancel Pride, which is, as Pride events were being canceled across the country, there's this recognition that Pride isn't about an event. It's not about a specific moment in time. It's really about a feeling. It's about the idea of community. It's about the idea of coming together and using our collective voices to create change and to drive visibility. And we wanted to drive two things. One is, without Pride and the events that were occurring, that was taking away a moment of visibility for a lot of people in a lot of communities that use that as a source of strength, as a way to move forward, as their way to find their way in the community. Yeah. And so we wanted to bring people together in a virtual way that had the ability to create a lot of impact. The second thing that we wanted to do was bring companies and brands together collectively to help fill the gap for those organizations that were having difficulty raising money during COVID. I mean, Pride is a moment where LGBTQ organizations are raising a disproportionate amount of their yearly operating budget. So if we could create something that would do both, then we're hopefully being in service to the community. So we created Can't Cancel Pride last year and raised about $4.1 million for 6 different organizations. We just started Wave 2, which debuted on June 4th on iHeart. You can still see it through the end of June on any of the iHeart social media platforms or on Roku. And again, it's about bringing community together, a positive message of unity and moving forward. And it's just been a really terrific thing to be a part of. And it's just great to see the community coming together again, even if we're filming people at home or in their backyards, or, you know, you have this resiliency in this community that is just, you cannot put it away.
I agree.
You
Yeah.
just you can't cancel it, right?
Yep. No, that's what's interesting is that, but by being connected with you perhaps online, I have this advantage. I see some of the work you do year round. And like a few months ago, you were also on a panel with Out Leadership. And I've seen it even with this campaign, this general campaign that you guys have, hashtag Lead with Love. It seems like you're doing a lot of things year round that are kind of keeping P&G in the LGBT community.
Well, I mean, it really is it needs to be a year-round relationship. It's a year-round conversation. I think there's a lot of conversation that comes up about companies coming in Pride and making a big splash. And, you know, I think it's wonderful that they do. I think it's wonderful that we have a moment in time to do that. But what I really hope it means is that it creates an entry point for a long-term relationship, that it's not something that you come in once, do it, and create a splash, and then wait till the next year to come around. But it's an entry point for us to have something that can be sustained. And, you know, I think it's great during a moment of the year where you can walk around and see the world painted with rainbows. But, you know, that doesn't take away the need that people have in October or November, December, whatever month it might be, to feel supported, to feel visible, and to get the tools they need in order to, you know, overcome some of the inequality that the community faces.
Yeah, no, I agree. SNL may have had a little fun when they poked fun at Deutsche Bank being the corporate sponsor of Pride, and but I will say that I remember going to Toronto years ago, and we went to TD Bank to a special event they were hosting for Pride, and they were the only bank that was even a part of Pride, but it was a very small VIP event at their building. And if you fast forward years later, the whole city of Toronto now for Pride is just every bank is participating, as well as, of course, many other industries. But the evolution has been astounding, I think, in terms of just corporations embracing the LGBT community in this way.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, we need to make sure that we're walking the walk and talking the talk, right? And if you're going to be showing up in Pride, we want to make sure that you are getting those hundreds on the HRC Equality Index, and that your policies internally are backing up the you know, visibility that you're working to drive externally. We want to make sure that it's a year-round sustained effort. And, you know, I use the phrase all the time: everybody's Pride is somebody's first Pride, right? And that holds true for young people. It holds true for parents. It also holds true for companies and brands. And if a brand comes in or a company comes into Pride for the first time, and they may not hit it out of the ballpark the first time, right? But the point is that they're coming in hopefully with good intention. And what I want to make sure that we do is we welcome them in, and we work to help them sustain that relationship year round, because that's what's going to create lasting change for the community. I mean, as employees of companies, that's where we spend the majority of our time, majority of our adult time. So we want them to be supportive places, but we want them to be points of change. We want them to be places that are having positive impact to our communities. So we welcome them in, and we hope that we can be supportive in that journey, so that their good intentions end up being something that really can create positive impact.
Well said. No, I agree. And no, mostly, you know, I know a lot's going on here this month, and so I really appreciate the fact that you're able to take a few moments of your time and just sort of share not only your story, but also kind of what your Procter and Gamble's up to and doing this month and year round. And I look forward to being able to connect with you in the real world at one of the upcoming conferences that we attend.
I know. I can't wait. It's going to actually seem really weird. Next week, I'm doing I'm going on my first trip in over a year. We've produced a new documentary called Coded, which looks at an illustrator named J.C. Leyendecker. And he was predominant illustrator in the early part of the 20th century. And his story's been largely forgotten, primarily because of his sexual orientation. But in his imagery, it's very LGBTQ coded. And so this is my first trip is being able to premiere this film at the Tribeca Film Festival. And it's a great way to reemerge into the world by bringing his story back. So hopefully we can connect soon. And it's just nice to be returning into the land of.
I agree. It's a slow process with lots of hope.
Exactly. Well, there's a reason why our community's symbol is a rainbow, right?
Yes,
Because it
exactly.
doesn't matter how many clouds are back there, right? We always focus on the rainbow and that hope.
I'm that positive.
Yeah,
Well, thanks again for being here. And like I said, very much look forward to connecting here soon.
absolutely. Thank you for
All
having
right.
me. Great to
Take
chat.
care.
All right, take care.
So good.